Been told y'all. I can't talk right now. I'm on live.
The name DL Hughley.
Yep.
And until he take accountability, I won't let
Monique was on. Every time I see Monique these days, she's on doing some greasy ass video with her and her daddy complaining about something. And we played all the time with everybody called Would You Rather. She apparently was so offended by that she says she got off. She called me. Monique did, and she said I was very dismissive, like, Monique's a liar.
For a few quiet days, before the story exploded across the internet, Katt Scott was just another name whispered in small-town conversations. Then the whispers turned into questions, and the questions into a roar that echoed far beyond her neighborhood. When the police finally confirmed that the young woman's remains had been discovered in an abandoned schoolyard, the world stopped scrolling for a moment. The air seemed to thicken, the way it does right before a thunderstorm. People who had never met her suddenly felt they knew her, because tragedy has a way of turning strangers into witnesses. What followed was confusion, rumors flying faster than facts. Social media threads filled with wild guesses, shaky screenshots, and theories built on emotion rather than evidence. News outlets tried to keep up, but the narrative kept changing by the hour. Into that noise stepped the police department, holding a press conference that was supposed to calm the chaos. Cameras flashed, microphones hovered, and the spokesperson began reading from a paper that trembled slightly in her hands. What she said next didn't bring peace. It only deepened the mystery. According to officials, the primary suspect, Kian King, had already turned himself in. That single sentence set off 1,000 new questions. Kian wasn't some nameless figure. People knew him. They'd seen him around, smiled at him in gas stations, maybe shared.
If the people who felt like I felt, all these spoke up and said something, the narrative would start.
A joke or two. His name carried a certain local familiarity that made the situation feel even heavier. When reporters listed the charges, arson, conspiracy to commit arson, and car theft, the public expected one more line to follow: murder. But it never came. The absence of that word echoed louder than any confirmation could have. Viewers leaned closer to their screens, replaying the clip, wondering if they had missed something. But they hadn't. The unspoken hung there, like smoke after a fire. Behind the headlines, friends of Katt Scott struggled to make sense of what had happened. They spoke about her kindness, her laughter that could fill a room, and her habit of sending random good morning texts just to make sure people knew she cared. Social media tributes poured in. Photos of her smiling under summer light, short clips from parties, the kind of everyday memories that suddenly feel sacred once someone's gone. The more they posted, the more surreal it became. How could someone so full of life vanish so violently? Katt's cousin Gabby became one of the few consistent voices online, posting updates not just about the investigation but about Katt as a person. She wasn't perfect, Gabby wrote once, but she was real. She loved hard and forgave too easily. That line was shared thousands of times. It cut through the noise because it sounded honest, less like PR, more like family grief. While the internet dissected every possible motive, police moved quietly. The investigation's details stayed locked behind cautious language, ongoing case, sensitive evidence, pending results. For journalists trying to report responsibly, it was like walking through fog. What was confirmed one day might be contradicted the next. Still, one fact stood out: the missing unaliving charge. That absence became the centerpiece of speculation. Did it mean Kian King wasn't directly involved? Or was there something the authorities weren't ready to say? Outside official circles, theories multiplied. Some pointed to a possible cover-up.
A lie he told. You see what I'm saying? So even if I made it deceitful and I made you think that the answer is over here, but the answer is really over here.
Others believed Kian had confessed only to part of what happened. On talk shows, commentators debated legal technicalities while social media treated it like an open-source investigation. In a world addicted to instant answers, patience was the one thing no one had. For the people who actually knew Katt, though, the noise felt disrespectful. Her friends stopped scrolling altogether. They avoided reading the comments that turned her life into a hashtag. It's like watching strangers rewrite her story, one of them told a local paper. They're turning her pain into entertainment. That quote struck a chord. It reminded everyone that behind the mystery and the headlines was a real human being. Still, curiosity has its own gravity. The deeper people looked, the more questions they found. Why had Kian surrendered voluntarily? What was the story behind the fire that tied him to the arson charge? And why did the police seem so careful in their wording? The internet wanted answers yesterday, but real life doesn't move at Wi-Fi speed. In the meantime, the abandoned schoolyard where Katt was found became an unplanned memorial. Strangers left candles and roses beside the rusted fence. Some wrote her name on cardboard signs. Others brought teddy bears, as if trying to soften the sharpness of what had happened. By nightfall, the place glowed faintly under the flicker of candlelight. The town's silence that evening felt both sacred and unbearable. Reporters started calling it the place where questions burn brighter than answers. And maybe that was true. Every investigation starts with facts, but the heart of a tragedy lives in the spaces between them, the moments that don't make it into police reports. When Kian King's mugshot appeared online, reactions split down the middle. Some said his eyes looked cold, like guilt carved into a face. Others swore he looked scared, even broken. People zoomed in on the image, searching for clues that weren't really there. It's strange how much emotion a single still photo can carry when the world is desperate for someone to blame. As the story gained national attention, it also began to evolve. Talk radio hosts turned it into moral debate, influencers filmed reaction videos, and podcasters promised exclusive insight into the case. But beneath the noise, the real story was quieter, slower, more painful. It was about how a community learns to breathe again after losing one of its own. It was about how love turns into anger, and anger into confusion, before slowly circling back to grief. Even those who didn't know Katt personally found themselves talking about her at dinner tables and workplaces. She had become a symbol, not of crime, but of vulnerability. Her story reminded people that the line between safety and danger can vanish without warning. And through it all, one question refused to fade. Why did the police avoid the unaliving charge? Was it caution, lack of evidence, or something more complicated? Every theory seemed plausible, and none of them satisfying. By the end of that first week, the investigation had become less about what was known and more about what was missing. Facts, truth, closure. Each one felt slightly out of reach. And in that space of uncertainty, fear started to grow roots. When Kian King walked into the precinct that Tuesday afternoon, the whole city seemed to inhale. The move was unexpected. He wasn't dragged out in cuffs or cornered by a SWAT team. He came on his own, head low, hoodie up, quiet. Officers said later that he barely spoke, answering questions with short, steady sentences. Outside, cameras were already waiting, their lenses pointed toward the station doors like hungry eyes. The news spread in minutes. He turned himself in. That single sentence felt almost cinematic, like the moment in a crime film when the villain surprises everyone by surrendering before the third act. But this wasn't fiction. This was a man linked to the
Monique been telling y'all, black women are being underpaid. She been telling y'all
disappearance and death of a young woman the community loved, and no one could decide what his decision meant. Some said it was guilt. Others whispered strategy. Maybe Kian believed he could control the story by stepping forward first. Maybe his lawyer told him it would look better to a judge. Whatever the reason, the image of him crossing that threshold became the symbol of a city trying to understand what justice really looked like. Inside the station, detectives laid out evidence: photos, messages, fragments of burned fabric from the arson scene. The room smelled faintly of coffee and exhaustion. Kian asked for water, then stared at the table for a long time before speaking. No one in the department has ever repeated exactly what he said that night, but sources close to the case confirmed that his words were careful, measured, and incomplete. He admitted to certain actions, but left large blanks in his timeline. Those blanks became the most valuable currency in the investigation. Meanwhile, Gabby, Katt's cousin, found herself caught between fury and heartbreak. She wanted answers more than she wanted sleep. Reporters kept calling, asking if she would comment on the new development, but what could she really say? She was mourning, not campaigning. Every news alert felt like someone reopening the wound before it had a chance to scab. Still, Gabby couldn't stay silent. Late that night, she posted again. This time a photo of Katt laughing at a summer barbecue, wearing that bright yellow dress everyone remembered. The caption was simple: "You didn't deserve this." Within hours, tens of thousands of people had liked it, and the comments filled with strangers promising to keep sharing Katt's story. It was grief gone viral, raw emotions spilling into public space. As the online community rallied, the police kept working quietly. Forensics teams combed through burned debris, searching for DNA traces that might link Kian directly to the scene. Every small discovery became a headline, sometimes exaggerated, sometimes misunderstood. "They found a hoodie," shouted one post. "It wasn't even hers," corrected another. The line between verified evidence and rumor blurred so much that even experienced reporters struggled to keep up. At the same time, local activists began connecting Katt's case to a larger conversation, one about the pattern of missing Black women whose stories often fade before justice is served. Candlelight vigils turned into marches. Posters with Katt's smile appeared on shop windows, church doors, and bus stops. Her name was becoming more than a headline, it was a movement. But movements, like people, have fault lines. Some online voices began to question Gabby herself. A short clip surfaced, grainy, recorded months earlier, apparently showing Gabby wearing a hoodie similar to one Kian often wore. It didn't prove anything, but the internet rarely waits for proof. In hours, her mentions filled with accusations. She knew. She's hiding something. Arrest her next. The truth was far messier. People from Philadelphia who had known Gabby years earlier came forward claiming she had her own complicated past, hinting at minor arrests, bad company, unfinished stories. Most of it was hearsay, but once gossip attaches to grief, it sticks. Gabby deleted her accounts for a few days, overwhelmed by the noise. Privately, investigators were looking into every angle, including the possibility that Gabby or someone close to her might have known more about Kian's behavior than they'd admitted. Nothing was confirmed, but the whispers reached every corner of the community. For some, the theory felt cruel. For others, it made sense of the silence that surrounded Katt's disappearance in the days before the discovery. While speculation exploded online, the prosecutors faced a legal maze. Without a direct confession or clear forensic link, adding a homicide charge could risk the entire case. They needed airtight evidence, something undeniable. So they waited, collecting, testing, double-checking. Each delay fed public frustration. Why are they protecting him? People asked. Why is this taking so long? The truth was simple but unpopular. Building a solid case takes time. Meanwhile, talk shows and YouTube commentators treated every new scrap of information like gold. Some were careful, others were reckless. A few turned the tragedy into entertainment, using dramatic thumbnails and sensational headlines. Every upload widened the emotional divide, those who wanted empathy versus those who wanted spectacle. In quieter spaces, church basements, coffee shops, classrooms, people talked about what Katt represented. A teacher at her old high school organized an art project in her memory. Students painted murals with her face, surrounded